Welcome to the Time of the Reason podcast show. We're not looking for ratings. We are not here to support and to create sensationalism. We are not here to entertain. We are here to give due diligence to the pressing human, economic, environmental, political, and social issues that affect humankind. We are here to promote thinking. And why not? Look around. Anger, hate, division, chaos, and conflict between people abounds. It's everywhere these days. Unchallenged narcissism is flourishing. Consequences for antisocial behavior are non existent. People are supporting unsubstantiated claims. Many are mindless, following narratives that divide people, blindly canceling, censoring, and ridiculing others who don't believe what they believe. We wonder, is logic and reason dead? Is critical thinking over? Does common sense even matter? Now, more than ever, is the time to revive reason. Unless we do so, humankind is riding a one-way runaway train into oblivion. Think about it. We must think. Thank you for listening again to another episode of the Time of the Reason podcast show. Let's get started. Hello, everybody. Good morning, Dan, my co-host of Mind Matters, which is now, we got a couple of housekeeping announcements to make before we get started on today's episode, but we have transformed ourselves into the Reviving Reason podcast show. We were formerly Mind Matters. Conversations are still going to be the same, but after, a year and a half of these discussions about what we're witnessing in the world of critical thinking and logic and reason, we want to do our part to revive reason by doing what? I think I wrote it here. Inciting critical thought, reviving reason and logic, spawning common sense. We just want to have an authentic conversation about some of the social things that are going on these days that we need to take a really hard look at. And so I thank you, the listeners, for hanging on to watching Mind Matters and my co-host, Dan Ploger, who has given us some great ideas for conversations, one of which is what we're going to talk about today, this unchallenged narcissism. But we're going to, if you haven't heard or if you don't know, earlier this week, an iconic landmark that's in northeastern England, Northumberland, in the United Kingdom, in the middle of the night, was chopped down with a chainsaw, right? And two hikers were walking along Hadrian's Wall early morning. Hadrian's Wall, by the way, was built right by the Roman emperor to keep the barbarians of Caledonia out of the Roman Empire. It was emperor. So this wall was completed in 122 AD. And it's been a testament to world history for centuries. So we'll fast forward to the tree, which was in Sycamore Gap. You can see it behind me here. Beautiful tree, 300 plus years old. It was in the movie. They call it the Robin Hood tree. It's a sycamore tree, but the Robin Hood tree, Kevin Costner and Morgan Freeman made it popular in that movie, Robin Hood. So that's where it got its name from. But initially, they arrested a 16-year-old boy who's now out on bond. And then more recently, yesterday, they arrested a 60-year-old. The motive, the intentions, the inspiration for such a weird, ridiculous, stupid act are still unknown at this time. But Dan, is this just another example of what we've been talking about? People blocking traffic, people throwing tomato soup on a Van Gogh, people just doing outrageously stupid acts to make a point or to just show how narcissistic they are. Is this part of that revolution? What's going on here? Where are the consequences?
Well, that's the problem, John. There is no consequences. There are no consequences. It's just a horrible, horrible thing that you could have a 16-year-old kid, or it doesn't matter, 60-year-old child that could do something like that. I've been busy studying information theory and the realization that information is what connects our past to our future, and all earthly knowledge is contained, not just earthly, universal knowledge, and that how somebody could think that they're important or their cause or whatever it is that they're trying to espouse is more important, carries more weight than something that has stored climate information, that has stored just unbelievable amounts of information over literally thousands of years. Hadrian was around 2,000 years ago. It's pretty that's pretty narcissistic. It is. It's pretty much the epitome saying, all you people were wrong when you admired this Matisse or this Van Gogh. You are all wrong. I'm the one that matters, and my can of tomato soup and my cause is more important. And yes, this is narcissism completely run amok. And until we show that there's a penalty for narcissism, I mean, there used to be a penalty for narcissism, and it was called narcissism was called bragging when we were children. But everybody knew what happened to a braggart in elementary school. There was karma that settled the score.
Well, flogging in the public square. If I thought for one instance that the English police would imprison me for 25 years and they would do it, and I would be flogged and I would be ridiculed in public, I would doubt very seriously that I would walk the 7 kilometers with a chainsaw in the middle of the night and do something so stupid. Yeah. But yet these news services and these social media platforms, they put out people coming in and looting a store. And then, of course, in the state of California, you can steal up to $1,000 worth of stuff and get away with it. So why not? You're not getting in trouble for it. Or, Dan, you could take your wife out to an outdoor cafe to enjoy a nice dinner, and a group of people can come by and yell at you for you enjoying your life, and they can get away with making idiots out of themselves. And we're seeing this, people stopping traffic, about climate change. Yet the cars sit in the traffic for hours on end, burning more fossil fuels that they claim that they don't want burned. But and they're creating traffic problems. There's been accidents. It's insane. Or the World Economic Forum, we're going to fly to Davos on a Learjet and burn tonnage of carbon dioxide, put it in and then we're going to tell everybody else how to live their life. You can't fly, you can't drive, you have to listen to us because we're smarter than you. That felled tree behind me has more intelligence than any of those people, and I'll say that. I'll be bold.
It is. Yeah, you could it's quantifiable. Yeah.
So what do we do about this unchallenged narcissism? Do we just turn off social media? Do we tell these news services?
I think so. You heard the politicians talk about maybe even begin to limit children's use of the internet. Maybe that's not a bad idea if it's something that nobody can control. But we understand, we're really beginning to understand what the whole social media thing is about. And it's not about good. It's about trying to find people's hot buttons and doing whatever it can to exacerbate them, to set them off. And until, number one, we start holding the media companies accountable for what they promote, and they are promoting it. Their algorithms promote the type of behavior that's actually happening. Until they're held accountable, and the people with the chainsaw that just have the intellect of an amoeba next to that tree. You and I have studied a little mycelium and how the forest floor is governed by a network of fibers that emulate a human brain, any brain, shouldn't just say human brain, that emulate the neural circuits of brains, and how much intellect there was just in the forest from that tree, from its mycelium net. It's just incredible. It's an awful shame. And I think it's about time. I think the world's coming to sense. I think that finally we've got to put these insane nuts behind bars. That's all. That's the only thing you can do. If there's no penalty, this type of behavior will continue. And well, unfortunately, we can plant a tree there, another one, a little sapling, and in 2,000 years, people can come to there and admire that tree. But it's going to take a while for nature to forget what the 16-year-old kid and his henchmen, and looks like they're pretty good with a chainsaw.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing. It's got the right cuts on it.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is so true. When you talk about algorithms and news services and social media platforms, they are fueling the fire. And you're totally right. They're doing it for likes. They're doing it for views. They're doing it for clickbait, where they actually make money when somebody clicks on one of their ridiculous stories. And they are fueling the de-evolution of mankind. In an age when you think that mankind or humankind, let's be nice here, right? When you think of a point in human history, you would think we would be beyond this. But it's another example to show that if you create chaos and sensationalism and confusion, and you don't penalize people for doing such heinous acts, you're contributing to the downfall of the human species. And I will bet you the mycelium that you talked about and all the mushrooms that grow in that area, they're already in communication. And I'm not a nut, because this has all been proven with botanists and people that study those kinds of things. This is ridiculous. I hope a group comes together in England, comes together and goes out and plants 100 saplings, kind of like in your face narcissism. We're going to plant 100 saplings, and 1,000 or 2,000 years from now, if it's recorded, somebody then will know that there was a group of intelligent human beings that saw the wrong that was done and wanted to make it right. That's the kind of stuff that inspires me. Do the right thing. This is disgusting. This is beyond disgusting.
Yeah, this is a can of tomato soup on a Van Gogh, and really the narcissism is just. I think that that's what it is. It's incorporated narcissism, the whole social media and everything that happens as a result of it. And until we realize the way we realized very early on with fire, as cavemen, when cavemen first started learning to manage fire, I'm sure there were thousands of caves that were set on fire as fire reached their straw bedding and they died in their sleep. But eventually, humankind became smarter and knew it's better not to sleep with an open flame around a straw bedding. And, we either the penalties have to be imposed by man, or the penalties have to be imposed by karma. But either way, they're going to be imposed.
Yeah, it reminds me of that movie. I can't think. What we have here is a failure to communicate, and some people you just can't reach. You're never going to reach some of these people, whatever their need is for acceptance and approval and attention. If you're doing stuff like this, you've got some serious issues.
Well, it's already a pathology by definition.
By definition. And if you're a social media platform or a news service that is allowing it, that's helping to perpetrate the messaging of this,
Yeah.
then you're just as guilty, I think, guilty by association. So social media, clean up your act. All you news networks that are, gleefully clapping your hands and counting your shekels with the dollars that you make on advertisers, and anybody that advertises those platforms, they're just as guilty. Start looking at, the power's with the people. I will always believe that. And if you start doing some critical thinking, and if you start using logic and reason and some common sense, you'll find out that consequences matter and they are effective. And we need to change. We need to transform. We need to quit being so chaotic and conflicting and mad at each other. So it gets to this point, and start doing something good for a change. Why not?
What is the imagine you're one of the persons, the climate enthusiasts that set up in the desert to stop people from attending the Burning Man celebration that recently happened. How more narcissistic could anybody get that they could sit there and on the road prevent anybody else from passing and say with certainty that my crises are more important than the crises of anybody in this line of traffic, that anybody that might be looking for a hospital, or a wife that's going to give birth, or somebody just has to go to the bathroom so bad they can't stand it. Your cause, your environmental cause, is more important than the sum of all those other people. And it's the whole idea is ludicrous. And until there's penalties, it's going to continue. We shouldn't expect it to stop. And the penalties have to be, we have to quit giving, to have to take away any protections and exemptions that these social outlets have.
Yeah, it's funny about, you mentioned the environmentalists, and I'll make a couple of statements here to qualify. Climate change is real. It is real. They have yet to identify the exact mechanisms for it, but
they can't decide whether it's warming or cooling.
Yeah, well, and exactly, and I have yet to find an environmentalist yet, or one of these people that stops traffic, to explain to me why there have been at least 4 known glacial ages, ice ages, if you will, where the planet was entirely covered by ice, and then it went away, and then it warmed up, and then it covered with ice. They have yet to explain to me how the planet warmed up without fossil fuels. We know it's from internal combustion and volcanic action. But again, this is what happens. The planet heats up, the planet cools, the planet heats up. And if we want to get to the ultimate example of narcissism, it would be those people that say that we have that great of an effect on a sphere in space, that it was here long before the human species, that was doing its thing. That's big time narcissism.
Yeah, long before you had environmental protection.
Yeah, so granted, we have to be good stewards of the planet. Turn your light off if you leave the room. Save a little bit of energy. I get that. But to think that humankind is somehow going to stop the planet from doing its thing is ridiculous. And you've said this before, and I agree with you. If you're not talking about nuclear energy, and what you're talking about is lithium batteries, then you are clueless when it comes to energy generation and what clean energy really is. Anyhow, we've digressed, but we haven't digressed. Narcissism is alive and well on this planet, been around for a long time, and this sycamore gap tree destructive act is another example of it.
Well, John, here's your opportunity to fight back. We can create an award, a narcissist award, like they can go to the most outrageous act of narcissism over the past week. There ought to be plentiful examples of this.
That's a great idea. I'm going to come up with something this week, and we are going to start next week. Check the news agencies, the news stories, Dan. We'll vote on it. We'll let the listeners vote on it, and we'll hand out the world's first narcissism award.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so we'll do that this week. But I just want to say thank you again, Dan, for getting up early to do this recording, and thank you for listening. And if you're thinking about doing something very narcissistic, think twice, because the world's about ready to change, and you might just be held accountable for that. Dan mentioned it. It's called karma. Be part of the movement to revive reason and not make a mockery out of it. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Time of the Reason podcast show. Now it's time to think. Logic and reason work. It's only common sense. Do your part.